What's good money?
Pull up your account.
My phone is dead.
Okay.
What is good?
Until you can pull up your account, then...
Well, give us an idea. Why does it have to be about me? Is a couple million enough? Is a couple million enough?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Isn't that
not.
wild? Like nowadays, the market is so inflated that to get a 31-year-old girl,
you know what's funny though?
You need to have multi-million dollars, like to get a ran through 31-year-old like sweatpants Birkin bag. You need to have multiple M's in the bank.
I know.
That's insane.
You can't just be funny and have a 8-inch hammer anymore.
Hold on.
Guys, welcome to Better Bachelor. My name is Joker with a face for radio and a voice for print. Today's story, I found a reporter on Tinder that wrote up a story for an online website. And she said, you know something, I actually made a man's profile on Tinder. I swiped, and all the reports and everything I've heard about women are true, which is it's kind of terrible out there for guys, and women are being picky and unrelatable. And women kind of suck on the dating apps. This is from an Olivia Reingold. Olivia Reingold. She says, for this story, I set up an online dating profile as a man. My sources were right. The apps are full of demands for a tall, fit guy or a provider. A few swipes in, I spotted this warning on a woman's profile. If you one of those split the check or not wealthy, next. And this is something, we've talked about time after time, and women come out and say, nah, it's crap and everything else. But the truth of it is women's expectations have gone nuts. And I have a couple actually Tinder metrics where people will swipe, and based on the texts and based on the AI of Tinder, can build a profile that tells you kind of their dating history. And I found a couple guys' profiles that are tall, dark, handsome, and they pretend to have money. They've even admitted this themselves. So it doesn't necessarily mean they have money, but they're fit, they're tall, and they're good looking, and they fake having the money, and they have no problems with women. This woman posted here on Twitter, X, she says, women just want a good mid guy to call our own. Men will never understand that. And she posts a picture of Henry Cavill. Now, again, is she being facetious? Is she being funny? Who knows? But the truth of it is, we know that if Henry Cavill wasn't in Superman shape, but he was in dad bod shape, he would have a lot less luck than he has now. We know that women have just gone absolutely crazy with it. So let me read the article that I have, and then I'll show you those couple of Tinder profiles that I was talking about. So this is from Olivia here, and she wrote this up today, as a matter of fact. She says, and I apologize for any background noise. My battery terminals are feeding me juice, and the fans turn on because I'm sucking juice out of them. She says, the dating pool dropouts. Young men today feel they must be 6 feet tall, make six figures, and have 6 inches downstairs to get a girlfriend. So many have given up trying. Now, what's interesting about this being written by a woman, Olivia, is how long have men's channels been saying, hey, man, you got to have all the 6s. And now we joke around, you got to have all the 7s. Or except for the 6-pack's got to be an 8-pack now. It's proliferated the zeitgeist so much that now women are actually hearing this, and women that are not on the dating apps and not doing the things, even they're like, yeah, the women want all the 6s. They're being unrealistic. So no Matt, and since that's the only place men really meet women now, what's an average bloke supposed to do? They suffer, and so they either are miserable, or they try their luck in the real world, or they just give up. And a lot more are giving up. But I think they're giving up out of reasonableness. Like, this is just not a good value proposition for me. This isn't worth my time. Yes, some are quitting out of, being sad and realizing that they're not going to get there in life. But, as I say many times to many people, the red pill is not ever taken voluntarily. It arrives usually as a rectal insertion, much against your will. And that's how most guys find the red pill, is it's a suppository. It's not taken orally. And as more men find this, they find channels like mine or other ones, and hopefully they say, hey, you know what? There's 500, 400, almost 500,000 people on this channel, plus this channel, plus this. There's millions of men in the same mindset and seeing the same things I am, and I don't feel so alone. She says, if you're, okay, I forget that first point. Okay, she says, how has the sexual revolution failed? The relationship between the sexes and our epidemic of loneliness are two topics we find ourselves continually returning to at the Free Press. Over the last few weeks, we have brought you a range of essays on these themes, from Jenny Powers on the surprising rise of phone sex operators to Rob Henderson on the decline of marriage. Kate Rosenfeld introduced us to the new female pickup artists, while our high school essay finalist Isabel Hogman revealed how she discovered spicy content when she was just 10 years old. I'm going to actually open this link for the female pickup artists. I'll give that a read and see if that's anything we should talk about. Now, Free Press writer Olivia Reingold reports on the increasing number of young men failing on the dating sites. She says, are you religious? The question made Jamal squirm. The answer was no, but he could tell his date wanted it to be yes. And after an hour-long drive to get there to a Caribbean restaurant in Orlando, Florida, he could tell it wasn't working. He said, I think we should just be friends, the 36-year-old security guard remembered telling the girl he had dinner with last month after they met on Facebook. He said this was his first date in 3 years. He said he once went 6 months without getting a single match on a dating app, even though he pays $30 in monthly fees between OkCupid, Bumble, and Hinge. If you count high school, when he went to the movies with a classmate, Jamal said he's been on a total of 3 dates his entire life. I think that's very similar to a lot of young men's stories today. Maybe they're not fully comfortable in social interactions. Maybe they just don't have a good profile. I mean, maybe they're just struggling in the looks department, or maybe they don't have a six-pack, but they have a keg like I do, got a little bit of a belly on them. He says, and now driving home from his date, it hit him like a ton of bricks. Why do I even do this at all? He walked into his apartment near Cape Canaveral, greeted the cats, and slumped down on his couch. I'm so far out of the loop, he told me as he realized at the time. Compared to my peers who have gone out with women and know how to interact with them, I'm too far gone. I can't learn that stuff. He trails off and then adds, I'm just not going to try anymore. It's not worth it. Now, in a case like this is where I think maybe talking to some guys that have had luck that will tell you, go to the gym and get ripped, get big. If this is something you want, because if you want to be a millionaire, you don't just wait around for $1 million to fall out of a plane and crash into your roof. You have to work for it. And you may work jobs that you don't want. You may work longer hours than you want. You have to learn about investing. You have to not spend much of your money. It takes work. Well, being successful with women is no different now. You have to work out. You have to be probably in the top 10 to 20% of men when it comes to shape, which means don't be out of shape, but also have some muscle that can be seen through a shirt. And when guys say, oh, it's not worth it, well, if you haven't done that, again, you're just waiting at the house to have $1 million fall through the roof. Now, if this guy's gone and he's worked out and he's not a bad-looking guy and he's doing relatively well for himself, he might be okay. But again, is the juice worth the squeeze? And this is obviously a common saying we have, because for a lot of men now, seeing the quality of women they get, they say, I'm not going to put in all that much time just for your average garden variety woman. He said, Jamal, who asked me to conceal his last name to protect his reputation at work, is one of a growing number of young men who are withdrawing from the dating pool. More than 6 in 10 men aged 18 to 29 are now single, up from about 5 in 10 in 2019. So that's 10% in just the last basically 4 years. 5 years, I should say. According to data from Pew Research Center, respondents give a range of reasons for their singlehood, including having more important priorities. I think that's most of us that watch this channel. The fact they just like being single, again, most of us, or that they've gotten too old to keep trying. That could be a lot of us as well. But part of it also boils down to this. It's hard for men to find partners at a moment when women are outpacing them both at school and work. Young women now hold 1.6 million more college degrees than men. And in a growing number of cities, including Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., and New York, they make as much as or more than their male counterparts. And even if they become mothers, odds are 4 in 10 will become the breadwinners of the households. Now, we've talked about this many times. These are numbers I talk about in my videos. And what do we hear from crazy women out there? You know, it's the patriarchy holding us down, and men are this and men are that. No, the truth of it is that actually women are just doing exceptionally well, and men are struggling, and that's all there is to it. And I'll continue on, and then in the other video I'm going to do today, I'm going to talk. I got to make the thumbnail up. But Shoe on Head, she decided did a video about her, and she decided to unblock me, and it's a whole long story. But suffice to say, she what's a good way I can put this? She made it look like I said something about her that I didn't say about her. I was saying about leftism and women and leftism in general. But the point is, she started defending men and coming to the backs of men to support them, and she started getting hateful stuff online. People on the left calling her out and calling her names because she said, "Hey, you know what? Men are struggling." And there's a video and clip I'm going to play in that my next video. So I hope you check that out. She says, he says, what discourages me so much is that most of the women I've seen on dating sites, they want a man asking or making as much as them, and they're making upwards of like 100 grand, said Jamal, who tells me he makes 55 grand a year. A lot of men are checking out. He adds, we're just tired. We're tired of being told that we don't want to measure up either physically or financially. I found Jamal on the online Reddit community, True Unpopular Opinion, where men often vent about the dating scene. On another subreddit, Purple Pill Debate, male commenters bemoan that they're held to the 6'6" rule, which mandates they must be 6 feet tall, make six figures, and have 6 inches or more downstairs. Jamal describes himself as a straight-laced guy who is 5 feet 5 inches tall. That's a struggle nowadays. That's a struggle. I mean, you know, he's a relatively shorter guy. And the problem with a lot of these dating apps, which is where most people are meeting each other, you could be funny, outgoing, hilarious. You could be Eddie Murphy hilarious. You could have great bank. But if a woman looks at your photo and she doesn't see you leaning on a Lambo, being 6 foot tall, she's going to have some doubts. And a lot of them set the filtering to be 5'10" and up, 5'11" and up. You're not even seen by a lot of these women nowadays if you're his height. She says, the men I spoke with, ranging from ages 17 to 33 and living in rural New York, New Jersey, to Austin, Texas, said they felt overlooked in a competitive dating market where women often list salary requirements and height preferences on their profiles. To see if things were as bad as they claimed, I joined 2 major dating platforms, Tinder and Hinge. I posed as a hip 30-year-old business owner, so meaning she had the bread, or pretended to have the bread, with a full head of hair. Oh, why you got to say that? and a degree from New York University, NYU. A few swipes in, I spotted a busty blonde leaning over in a halter dress with a caption, "Together we could find out if you're lying about your height." Then a 22-year-old captured in a selfie at her work cubicle with her cleavage resting on the desk, wrote, "Don't super like me if you're ugly. I already have a lot going on." Another woman, a 5'2" bombshell named Ashley, warned men, if you are one of those that split the check guys or not wealthy, next. That financial pressure is what screws men over the most, says Jess Carbino, the former in-house sociologist for the Tinder and Bumble. The traditional markers of adulthood, like buying a home, completing college, and getting married, are all becoming far harder to achieve. Carbino said, many men perceive themselves to be far less marriageable, and in turn, many women perceive themselves to be less marriageable too. Now, what I find interesting with this is, let's say you're 5'5", Jamal, making 55 grand, and you jump on there and start swiping, and it's, you need to be tall, and you need to be rich, and tall and rich, and tall and rich, and tall and rich, and tall and rich, and you're just swiping away. At a certain point, does this make you feel like you're going to get a date? No. Does it start making you doubt yourself and saying, I'm not a catch. I'm not a good person. No one wants me. I don't have everything they want. And in the end, it makes you sad. It makes you feel worthless. And that's why I say on a lot of these dating apps, especially if you're all the numbers, and like I said, I have some swipe profiles I'll show you. If you're all the numbers, you're having a great time on there. But if you're just an average or slightly shorter or slightly balder or whatever kind of guy, it is damn near impossible. And all you see is these women that want something that you can never be. And that's just, man, that's making a lot of guys go to dark places. She says it's never been easy to be Joe Average on the dating market, but things are rougher now than Let me try that sentence again. She says, it's never been easy to be Joe Average on the dating market, but things are rougher now that the average man's salary, which hovers just above $61,000 in the U.S., is hardly enough to afford rent in most major American cities. Yet still, many women hold out for men who make not just as much or more than they do, but also are wildly attractive. While the sexual revolution freed women from depending on men for income or stability, it also means they can privilege the more frivolous qualities in a mate, says Rob Henderson, the psychology PhD with a Substack on social mores. One thing I think is interesting too is that, a lot of these women, they may do very well for themselves, but maybe they don't make a lot more money than 60 grand if that's the average. But what happens is they might have an apartment with a roommate or two. It might be a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment, and maybe it's, I don't know, $3,000, $3,500 for all three to live there. So that's $1,200 a pop. I mean, you can afford it. It's expensive, but you can at least swing it. What these women are wanting is a man that can afford that by himself. She doesn't want to date a man that has roommates. She doesn't want to date a man that lives at home. She wants to date a man that can take care of her, that can provide. But the problem is these women are taking those jobs away from the men that would provide them, because companies are all about giving women shots and making sure they have a certain percentage of women. Well, those positions would have belonged to men, and now men can't get them because the women have them. And what do those women do? They want the better guy. And what about the women in the better jobs with the better guys? They want the better guys. And what ends up happening is perpetually women are shopping above their league, and there's just not enough men up there. They say people used to care a bit more deeply about moral character and hard work and whether the person was ethical and upstanding citizen, he tells me. And now you don't have to worry about that quite as much. And you can sort of focus on things that are just like more immediate, like attraction. The results, men at the tip top of the dating pool get everything, and the men who don't have it all get nothing. But even the alphas are feeling the squeeze. And I'll read that here in just a second. It is so validating to read quote unquote normies, people that are not in the men's communities, not in the red pill community. And I don't necessarily like to say red pill, but it's a term that lets you understand that, like, these men's communities I've been saying this for 4 or 5 years. Channels like Paul Elam and the Honey Badgers and Turd Flinging Monkey and Sandman and Coach Greg Adams and some of those guys have been saying this for 10 years. Same thing with Kevin Samuels. These are men that have been saying this for a decade, and just now the quote-unquote normal people are like, hey, those communities we made fun of, those men that talk about this stuff and complain all the time, what do you know? Turns out they're right. That's at least validating for us that we're just ahead of the curve on what everybody else knows, and again, we're being validated. We're not some butthurt dudes that are out complaining to the world about because we can't get a woman. It's that we see the trends and we know what's going on, and we've been talking about this. And why is it important that we talk about this? Not to whinge, not to cry, not to whine because we got a crappy deal of hands at the poker table of life. It's that, hey, at least I understand what's going on, I understand the game, and I can plan accordingly. And maybe that plan means no dating, no long-term relationships, whatever it may be. And the one thing they say here is that people used to care a bit more deeply about moral character and hard work and their morals, and are they an ethical and upstanding citizen? People don't care about that today. Why? They're not looking for a boyfriend or girlfriend. Well, let me correct that, because many men are looking for a girlfriend. The women are not looking for a moral, upstanding guy to marry. They're looking either for a paycheck or they're looking for Mr. Right Now. He is hot. I want to sleep with him. I want to hang out with him. She doesn't need a man with morals and good character because she doesn't want him to be a father. She doesn't want him to be a husband. She doesn't want to be a provider or a protector. It's like the fast food of dating. Instead of going long-term, everybody's like, what makes me happy now, no matter what the cost is, no matter how much it damages me, because I'm not worried about tomorrow. And then when the women arrive at 30 or 35 with a body count in the triple digits and messed up and maybe a kid from a couple of dudes, they're still only worrying about the today. But the today is what their past selves should have been worrying about. They should have been thinking when they're 22, 23, 24, what is my life going to be like in my 30s? Should I have a man and a family and be happy and be settled down then? Or am I just going to party it up and have a good time until I get there, and then I'll worry about that later? And then when they arrive at that later, All they are basically is they can still get dates and get used by the hot guys, but nobody wants to settle down with them. She says, even the alphas are feeling the squeeze. One New York City-based psychologist, I read that, didn't I? No, I didn't. One New York-based psychologist, David Gordon, says many of the high-powered men he treats, including doctors, lawyers, and financiers, fret over the ability to attract women despite their enviable salaries or careers. It's kind of sad or tragic, but some guys will look at their bank accounts, stocks, or even credit scores every day as if it's some sort of measure of their value. He said, we can look at the numbers, and I'm like, dude, looks pretty good to me. Still, he says, there's anxiety around, is this enough? And those men right there, I can tell you, they may be successful in their salaries and their careers. Where they're not successful is in their looks or their athleticism. If these guys were not only very financially well off, but they looked 6'2", very good looking, they wouldn't be concerned about everything, because women would be falling over themselves to be with these guys. Because women want it all today, even the guys that are at the top of the game when it comes to income, when it comes to stability, when it comes to money, even those guys are struggling because they're losing out to the hot guys. The hot guys are sleeping with everybody, and so they don't really have any issues. And the women, in many cases, don't care about their incomes because they're not trying to date him or marry him. They're just kind of saying, I want to have my fun now, and I want him to not be mid like Henry Cavill. He says, anxiety. This is the insecurity that keeps Santiago, a 25-year-old from Albuquerque, New Mexico, up at night. The last time he dated anyone was in 2021, but that ended when he suspected she was cheating on him. Now, with the wounds still raw, he feels he's not worthy of a girlfriend anymore. After being down in the dumps for so long, I feel like it's a handicap, says Santiago, who works at a department store and has been on only one date since his breakup. It makes me feel like, oh, he's damaged goods. And then there's the problem of not knowing how to approach a woman. He suspects his coworker might have a crush on him, and yet he worries that the one wrong move and he'll be labeled creepy. And that is very true. You do have to be careful about that, and you don't ever crap where you eat, because if you start dating a coworker and it goes bad, she can come up with all the bad things and get you fired. And they even say it's a common worry for men in the post-also-me era. In a 2016 study, over 95% of respondents replied with that men were much more likely to be creepy people than women. One 20-something on Reddit who wanted to ask out an employee at his local pet store groaned that men are expected to be the hunters, but are shamed for doing so in public unless it's on a stupid app. So Santiago does nothing. I'm a very insecure person. I don't want to bust anyone's bubble or break their boundaries, said the third-generation Mexican-American. And who can blame him? I thought I had a graphic here, and let me see if I can pull it up here. I have a lot of web pages here, and it may have here it is right here. This is the graphic I wanted to pull up. Let me move this over. Nope, not that. Stand by. Let me get it over to my story here. Okay, here we go. 74% of women aged 25 and below want to be approached more. 77% in the full 18 to 30. 68% wish to be approached more between 30 and 40, while for women 41 and older, 45% wish to be approached more. So basically, at least 3/4 of women in the 18 to 30 range want to be asked or approached more. 68%, or basically 2/3, between 30 and 40. That's a whole lot of women that want to be asked out or approached more. Why is it not happening? Because as Santiago says here, I do not want to put myself out there and then be fired, be shamed, be laughed at, be hurt, be whatever. And it used to be, even back in my day, but especially older than that, going back further in time than that when a man asked a woman out, she would politely say, oh, no, thank you. You know, you're not my type, or I'm interested in somebody else, or whatever. And men would say, okay, I got it, thank you, and walk away. Both parties were kind of nice about it. But what's happening today? The women have turned on, awful mode, because players and pickup guys and scumbags keep messing with them. And so instead of politely turning people away, they turn into monsters. Because honestly, and I don't blame them for this, they get tired of the creeps and the awful guys, because those are the ones that'll make the approach. And the nicer guys are the guys that maybe have something to offer, they don't make the approach. And so women either don't get approached by anybody or they get approached by creeps. But women are the ones that made this problem happen. Why? Because all the regular average guys that want to try to take a shot at it, they get shot down and are shamed out or creeped on or laughed at on social media. And guys see that stuff and they say, that's not going to be me. It's already hard enough to ask somebody out. I'm not going out like that. She says, and then there's the cost of romance. The average date in the U.S. comes with a $159 price tag. That is a huge, huge price tag and this is why women, when guys say, hey, you know what, let's meet over a cup of coffee. What are these women saying? I'm worth more than a cup of coffee. Don't waste my time unless you're paying for my Uber and taking me out and paying for a babysitter for my kids and taking me to a 5-star experience. I don't want you to be cheap. So what's it mean for a guy? A guy's going to have to take $160 to pay out $160 for every swing at the plate, for every chance to date somebody? It's not going to happen. And so then if men are like, hey, you want to grab a coffee or go maybe to a movie, and he's thinking $40-50, and she says, no, I deserve more, that guy's like, look, until we're dating, until I know we're an item, and then I feel like my money's going towards something. I'm not like putting $160 into a vending machine to see if a girlfriend falls out. That's like those grab claw machines, and the success chance on those are like 1%. It costs a guy thousands of dollars before he ever got a girlfriend. No guy's interested in that. She says that $159 price tag, which costs more than 10 hours of work for those making a $15 hourly wage. It started getting so expensive for one bachelor, a 26-year-old banker, that he moved from Los Angeles, to where rent averages around $3,000, to an apartment in Appalachia, where he and a friend now pay $500 each a month for rent. He said, I found it's a lot of time and, frankly, money. He said about dating back west, we're risking so much for so little. And that's the key. They're getting so little in return because of these women's attitudes, because of what they bring to the table, because of their body counts, whatever. Guys are just saying, you know what, that $160, I could save twice that, and instead of going on 2 dates, I can go hire some gal to give me the girlfriend experience, and at the end of the night, I know I'm going to have a good time with a girl that I find attractive because I picked her out of a lineup of women on these, sites. He says, but the dating scene in Appalachia, he said, it's not good either, partly because he's working remotely. Everyone is double my age and lives in like the Midwest. There's just none of that cohesion or fun. The world has changed. Some men insist they haven't checked out of dating. Rather, they have virtual girlfriends who satisfy all their needs. And for this, they talk about the AI stuff and the only fools women that they tune into to get attention and get the girlfriend experience from, or at least find something to talk to and flirt with. I think that's a cop-out. I don't think that's great, me personally, because those women you're just paying them and to pretend that they care. And even if it kind of gives you the experience, it's not real. It's all you're doing is making awful people a lot of money. Ethan King, a therapist who treats 90% men in Austin, Texas, says he often has to convince clients to look beyond the girls they see in the spicy movies. People say they're totally happy with their girlfriends, the movie girlfriends. They're like, it's too risky. I'd just rather be online. But Ian Stoltz, a 33-year-old overweight gas station attendant in Bridgeport, Connecticut, does not want to look past his online friends with benefits. He says he first met his online girlfriend on GameFAQs, a video game website that hosts message boards, when he was 13 or 14. They play video games together, and they message each other all day long. He told me he's sent her a hug emoji during our interview. She's been more than willing to be very close and intimate with me online, he said. So any urges I've had have been handled by that. There's just one problem. They've never met in person or spoken on the phone. She says she can't because she's mute. He says, I'm pretty convinced it's a lie. But at the same time, if I challenge her on it, what's going to happen? I'm going to find out the person I've been close to with friends for a decade is now a guy. I don't want to say I already know that, because I don't. He stumbles to find the right words. I'd just be losing a close friend, and I don't want to risk that. So he kind of thinks like, you know what, it could be a guy messing with me. But in the same token, we have good conversations, and I like the feeling, and I like someone communicating with me and making me feel like I'm important. And I don't know who it is. And maybe she could be ugly or heavy or a dude or whatever. I don't care. I need that interaction with other human beings. And it's true. How can you shame a dude that's just like, I am so freaking lonely, man. I got to have people in my life. Now, I think that if he became less awkward and he lost weight and he hit the gym and he worked hard, I think he'd have a much better success of dating. But the truth of it is that requires work. And a lot of young men today either won't or don't want to put in the work. It's kind of hard to feel for somebody that if they say it is very important for me to have a date, to be dating and have a social life. And you're like, okay, do you go to the gym? Do you eat well? Do you dress nice? Do you manicure your nails and your hair? Do you smell good? Do you put yourself out there to be comfortable around women and have good conversations and be funny and be personable? And they go, no, I don't do any of that. I sit in my basement on the computer all day. Okay, well then it's not going to happen for you. And I'm not going to feel sorry for you that it's not happening for you because you've put in literally zero effort. And that's where the Andrew Tates of the world and the tough love guys that say, you're worthless. You're not providing anything. You're not doing anything. You're not attractive. You're never going to be if you keep doing what you're doing. So either do something or shut up. That's where a lot of guys like Andrew Tate, because they say, you know what, he motivates me. Or he makes me realize I'm hating on myself when I need to be doing something. You know, everybody needs a little bit different type of motivation. They go over the U.S. marriage rate. It's the lowest ever. Americans discourage commitment now, which we've already talked about. Women are increasing their eggs because they're getting older and they're playing the field. And this continues on a little bit further, but we've basically covered, the important parts. The rest of it, not so much. And I wanted to show. This is the article on the female pickup artists. I'll read through that later. See if that's something maybe I want to talk about. This is on Tinder, and this says 2 years in a new city starting from scratch. So this is a guy that moved to a new area, and he's starting from scratch, and he's 34 years old, okay? He's swiped 41,000 times. He only swiped right 6,000 times. He swiped left 35,000 times. So he is a very selective guy. What does that mean? He's good looking, guarantee you. And this both these guys said that they were doing pretty good for themselves. He says, let me pull up this image here. He had out of 343 matches, he matched with about 80% of them. 268 he matched with. He went on 41 dates. He had 2 relationships and hooked up 29 times. And that's in 1 year, 306 days. So 2 years. So he's averaging hooking up with a woman about every month. A little bit more than every month. He beds a woman. Now, for some of you very successful guys, you'd say it's a low number. For some of you men, that would be like a miracle, right? Here's a 23-year-old guy. He's been on for 2 years and 135 days. He swiped 18,000 times. He swiped left 11,000 and right 6,700. So again, they're swiping right. They're being selective. They're being picky. He got 185 matches out of 6,700. 118 chats. He went on 86 dates. He hooked up 82 of the 86 dates, and he had 1 relationship. Now, what's this mean? He's got a huge closure rate for hooking. If he goes on a date, Don Juan here is very successful in being charisma, being very charismatic and charming and good looking, dressing well, pushing all the buttons and getting the girls into bed. But I want you to see something, and this is still important. He swiped 18,000 times, which sounds like, that is a ton of swipes. And out of that, he only got 185 matches. That is literally 1%. So here's a guy that is, when it comes to the dates and then taking her home, he's like at a 98% success rate. 86 dates, 82 hookups, and 1 relationship. So actually 83 out of 86, he's nailed it. But he still only matched 1% of the time. And so what's that mean? That a guy that can basically go on a date and is almost guaranteed to be attractive to the woman and to be funny and enough to get her attention and go to bed with her, he only gets 1% of the matches. So what's it going to be like for your average guy that does not have that type of statistics. It's going to be 0.1, 0.01, 0.001. And what about a woman, a 42-year-old woman? Days on Tinder, 1 year, 352 days. Here's a 42-year-old woman. She swiped 35,000 times. She only swiped right 953. Out of 35,000, she only swiped right 1,000 times. That is like 0.3%. She even said, let's go on a date. And she got matched a third of the time. She chatted with 277. She went on 50 dates, and she slept with those guys 43 out of 50. That's like 85% of the dates she went on, she slept with a dude. So look at it from the woman's perspective. Out of 36,000 men, she took 1,000. Now, out of 10,000 men, if you take 1,000, that's the top, 10%. So she took the top 3% of men at 42 years old. She took the top 3% of men. She matched with 1% of them. She went out on dates with, we'll call it 0.8% of them. And the ones she did go on a date on, she hooked up with them. 43 times this woman has slept with men in the last year. In 1 year, this 42-year-old's body count, in 1 year, 42 years old, her body count is 43. Just from online. Who knows if she met a dude in the real world? What are her previous 20 years of dating look like? You might have a woman that has 500 or 1,000 in her body count. What happens now that she's very close to her beauty going away, and the only thing that's keeping her going is her sexuality or maybe her body? What happens when that goes away? She either becomes an angry feminist or she becomes a woman that wants to settle down with a guy, and she wants a guy to be successful and 50 years old, and at 43 or 44, she'll decide, hey, let's date and get married. And he's got to bring all the money. What's she bring? Notch count of 1,000? Like, so why are guys going to go to the gym? And here's the thing, she can still be selective. She only picked the top 3%, and she got a third of them. So even though she's super picky, a third of those men, and of course those guys are like, hey, you know what? She's kind of a MILF. She got a nice rack on her. She's taking care of herself. Yeah, I'm the top 1% of men. Yeah, I'll throw a bone into her. And they do. And then these other guys are the ones that are throwing the bones into them. And so when men see this and they just say, something, I can't do it, man. It's just not, I can't do it, I won't do it, it's not worth it, it's tiring, it's whatever. Can anybody blame them? And so this woman that swiped, she's like, something, these guys are right. It's just not worth it. You're either a top dog that gets everything, or you're the bottom 90% now that gets nothing or crumbs. What are men to do? Men either need to be strong, to realize the nature of humanity now and make male friends and maybe go hire a professional every once in a while and understand the days of the family and the kids and people being by your side until your last days on earth. They're gone. Again, unless you're the top percentage man, they're gone. So you can either whine and cry about it and get angry and hate the world and walk through life being bitter, or you can say, you know what, I get it. I understand. This is not the world I would like to live in. It's not the way I want to participate. So I'm going to become a passport bro. I'm going to look overseas. I'm going to really hit the gym. I might even go in for some facial surgery if it's really important because I want to sleep with 20 women or 40 women a year. Maybe that's important to you. Or you can be like everybody else that says, something? I got it. I'll have some male friends. I'll do my thing. I'll find my hobbies. I'll have people in my life, but they're going to be other dudes and maybe an occasional hookup that I pay for. And other than that, that's the new world we're in. The internet's done it to us. For a while, it was a boon. Now it's a bane for a lot of guys. Either that or become really smooth and learn how to talk to women. And again, I'm not saying you don't get blown out every once in a while, but 75% of women between 18 and 30 and 68 between 30 and 40, they want to be approached more. And we say, yes, they only want to approach by the good-looking, tall. Okay, but I'll tell you something. If you're very healthy, if you either grow in a beard or, and I'm not saying you should do this. I'm just saying, like, these are your options now. Like, if you really want this woman, you grow in a beard to cover a weak chin, or you go get jaw implants. You know, you go to the gym and get some muscle. Maybe you're the dude that breaks his shin and it gets 3 inches added onto each one. So instead of being 5'9", you can say you're 6 feet tall. I'm not saying any of that will work. I'm not saying it's a good idea. But this is the world where we are now. And as long as women live in the stratosphere, and these men, the top percent of men are just like, look, it's a bonanza. I'm sleeping with 200 women a year. I'm going to keep doing it because it benefits me. And I'm sorry for all the rest of you guys, man. I'm sorry. I feel bad for you, but I'm not going to stop. I'm winning. Everybody's selfish now, and that's the way it all goes. Guys, if you like my work, I do have a summer sale going on. I've pinned it down in the comments down below. I've pinned the information. Go to betterbachelor.com, betterbachelor.locals.com/support. Select become a supporter for a year and put in summer YR. All caps, all one word, SUMMERYR. You can become a supporter for $3 a month. You get a full year's subscription over there. You're supporting me, you're supporting good cause, and you get to be in a community with like tons of other like-minded men. We share stories and news and life things that are happened to us, and it's a really positive, great place to be where you can at least have some camaraderie and hang out with other guys very similar to you. So I hope you come over and join today, and we'll see you in the next one.